Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Bailey Show. Let's just talk about it. No pressure, dialogue. On the Tisa Bailey Show. Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Bailey Show. Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Bailey Show. What's up? What's going on? What's going on, sweet babies? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Boy, we had a time getting here to y'all this evening. Let me tell you, we had a time getting to the people today, tonight.
Yes.
Y'all know who it is. It's your girl, Tisa Beatty, bringing you another power-packed podcast. This podcast tonight is particularly special to me because it is a part of my thesis requirements. Yes, I will have my master's degree in organizational leadership with an emphasis in HR management in 3 weeks. So this is a part of my requirement, a part of my thesis. And so we are talking about tonight, and please do go ahead, take this opportunity and share it with everybody that you think will benefit from this topic. I'm going to make sure that I have it shareable on my page so that if you want to post it or share it from my page, then certainly you can do so. Let's see here. Okay. So, yes, so you can actually share the podcast. Now you should be able to share the podcast from my page. Also, for those who are not on Facebook, please do go ahead and direct them if they want to view the podcast. Direct them to the YouTube channel. That's Tisa Beatty Life Coach. And that's Batey, Tisa Beatty. So we're going to be talking about social media and mental health. So the actual topic or title of my thesis is the effects that social media has on the mental health of our employees today. And it's a new age dilemma for HR. What is HR's role in mitigating this issue? I have some wonderful, wonderful guests who have also participated in my thesis survey who are actually joining us tonight. And I am excited and delighted. The first one I will introduce is actually joining us via cell phone because we were having some technical difficulties with her actually streaming on the podcast tonight. So I want to welcome our mental health professional. She's not only a mental health professional, but she's also a pastor of a congregation in Tennessee. Welcome, Miss Erica Hagler. Pastor Erica.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And next, I'm excited to be talking to us tonight from an HR perspective and a leadership perspective. He has a lot of experience in leadership and things of that nature. The good Dr. Robert Payne, joining us all the way from St. Louis. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Tisa. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And also, from an employee perspective, we have joining us all the way from Huntsville, Alabama. She is an educator, Monty Dangerfield. Thank you, Monty. Welcome.
Hey, y'all. Hey, thank you, Mama. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also joining us from here in Atlanta, she is a government worker and excited to have her on with us as well. Welcome, Ursula Relaford.
Thank you, Tita. I'm happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Also joining us, as always, my faithful sidekick, the infamous DJ Grady Baby. Welcome, DJ.
Thank you.
Hey,
You know
great,
what?
baby.
Thank you. I have to say this, Tisa. I worked 10 years in the mental health. I started out as a security guard in a mental health crisis center, and I became a mental health
Oh, wow.
tech. So yeah.
Oh, wow. So we have two
Yeah.
mental health professionals on the phone
Yes.
with us tonight. Wonderful. So we're going to be looking forward to whatever information or knowledge you can actually drop on us and the viewers tonight.
Yes.
I'm so excited to have everybody on the podcast. Hated that Erica Hagler is not pictured with us tonight, but I'm so glad to have her on the phone with us. The first thing I want to do, I've already told you about the thesis and my title. I want to start out talking to the employees tonight, and representing the employees, of course, we've got Monty Dangerfield and we've got Ursula Relaford. They're speaking from an employee perspective. Some things that I found really fascinating throughout doing my research in the thesis is that we have discovered that, 36% of employees surveyed spend more than 3 hours a day on social media platforms. Okay. And the average that they spend on company time on social media platforms is 1 to 2 hours. What was fascinating was this: when you think about being at work and being on social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, you think, okay, that's no big deal. That's a reasonable expectation, 1 to 2 hours of company time spent on social media platforms. Here's what it breaks down to. 42.7% of the employees surveyed report spending more than an hour of company time on social media platforms daily. So what that calculates to is over a 1 year period of time, it is equivalent, and these are full-time workers based on a 40-hour work week. That 1 hour a day is equivalent to about 6.5 weeks of vacation time or work time over the course of a year. That's huge. Do you think the company would like to get that time back? Yeah. So according to mental health professionals that we surveyed, according to them, a healthy amount of time to spend on social media platforms is between 1 and 2 hours per day. 1 to 2 hours per day. So Monty,
Yes, ma'am.
I am looking at your survey, and let me just go back to your page where I asked how many hours. So when I ask you how much time throughout your day you spend on social media platforms, do you remember what your response was?
It's probably during my planning time, and my planning time is 90 minutes, but I don't spend.
No. I'm talking about total.
Probably
Total time.
Oh, total. Outside of the workplace?
Yeah, just total time throughout the day.
It's a lot. Like when I get home at night, it's a lot.
So your response was between 3 to 5 hours.
Yes.
And you're certainly not alone in your response of 3 to 5 hours. But what do you think? What do you say to the mental health professionals who say that a healthy amount of time to spend on social media platforms daily is 1 to 2 hours?
Hmm.
Hey, and I agree because I very seldom do I come off of a social media platform feeling enlightened, feeling invigorated. I'm usually feeling some type of way if I'm being very honest.
Please.
It just depends on what's going on in the world. So I'm single, and it's one of those things where I have a lot of free time, and so I occupy that time scrolling, scrolling. And from a mental health aspect, that is not a good thing. I mean, I'm a reader, I'm an English teacher, I love to read, and I find myself more drawn to social media and reading about other people's existence versus indulging in a great novel or watching a documentary that has some kind of value. Social media has its benefits, I know, but by and large, I think that it is detrimental to our mental health. And I will tell you this from an educator's standpoint is that my students, I make them put up their cell phones when they come in my classroom. And there are students that literally cannot function. I mean, I had a student crying in class because she wanted her cell phone. She couldn't understand why I needed for her to put up her cell phone. And I'm like, I can't teach you with your divided attention. And
Wow.
so it's permeating our society where people, it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction. People just and I do that. I've had to condition myself not to do that first thing in the morning. You know, I wake up in the
Mm,
morning and I say hello to God, and then I reach for my cell phone to scroll on social media for nothing.
wow.
And so it's one of those things where because we do have, if we don't have some other productive way to utilize that time, social media is gap insurance. For those of us
Mm,
that, you know, I'm an empty nester. My son, you know, I have great friends, but I do have a lot of downtime. And one of the ways I feel that is by looking at other people's existence and see what they have going on. And sometimes the comparison game will come into play. And that's when it gets to be an issue. You know what I'm saying? Because
how does it make you feel when you compare yourself to the
I
lives
mean,
of others?
honestly, it makes
Yes.
me feel less than in some areas. I mean, there are things that I see that I yearn for, and on the outside looking in, it seems like other people have that or have it going on.
Yeah.
I do know that all that glitters isn't gold. I've been around people that have posted things, and what I've seen posted was not the reality of what was actually going on. So I did learn that lesson a couple of years ago, but
Yeah.
most of the time, T, when we post on social media, we're putting our best lives out there for other people to envy. When
Sure.
sometimes that isn't so. That really isn't
Sure.
so.
Very, very good. Very good. And you couldn't be more correct. I've often said that social media is, even though it's tangible, it's not real, because people are
Right,
only showing you what they want you to see.
right. It's very
Yeah,
curated. Very
absolutely.
curated. Nobody's
Absolutely.
gonna get on there unless somebody's really just having a breakdown. And sometimes you see that nobody's gonna get on there and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm feeling real lonely right now." And watching y'all posting about your engagements and your love life and your vacations in Costa Rica, that makes me feel some type of way. Can y'all stop doing that? Nobody's gonna say
Right.
that. Everybody's gonna hit the like button, hit the heart button,
Right.
clapping hands, smiley faces, and that's
Whether they're
really kind of
liking it or
toxic,
not. Whether they're
whether
liking it
they're
or not.
liking it or not. Yes, ma'am.
So, so Ursula, thank you, Monty, so much for being
You're welcome.
transparent. Ursula, when
Yes.
I look at your response to that very same question, and I'm not talking about company time, I'm talking about just hours throughout the day spent on social media. You answered the same, 3 to 5 hours. Um, the difference between your answer and Monty's answer is that she said, yes, there are times that I do compare myself to the lives of those that I view on social media platforms, and sometimes it makes me feel really, really bad. Um, your answer was you do spend 3 to 5 hours a day, but you do not compare yourself to the lives of others. But what say you to the mental health specialists who say 1 to 2 hours is a healthy balance?
I completely agree. Um, for me, social media has become obsessingly addictive. If I
Mm,
must tell the truth, I find myself, um, my sight is not the best, so I keep my glasses in the bed. I also keep my cell phone in the bed. If I turn from the left to the right, I'm touching my glasses and then feeling for my cell phone. And when I pick it up, I automatically say, "What's happening on Facebook?" And I
Yes.
just
mm,
look at it and I'm just turning to the left. I'm just resituating myself in the bed to get comfortable. So that could be at 1:30 or 2 in the night. Let me see who's being foolish on social media. Let me see what kind of
wow.
foolishness is going on social media. Um, when I wake up and go use the bathroom, or I say my word, I'll read a scripture first because that makes me feel better. Wake up in the morning, read a scripture in my Bible app, and then go straight to Facebook to see
Yes,
what's
Wow.
happened.
Wow.
Um, if I need a break from work, because I'm staring into the laptop all day long. That's all I do is work in the laptop and I'm looking at it. So every 30 to 40 minutes, I need to break. And when I take a break is to get up, take my phone with me, and check out social media. So I find myself having to pull back and really having to work hard to stay away from it.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Wow.
the truth. I'm being really confessions.
So how does it make you feel though when you do see other people who maybe are doing things that you aspire to do or have things that you aspire to have? Does it affect you in from a mental health capacity in any way?
Not negatively. If they're balling and they're rich, I'm celebrating them and I'm like, woo, I would love to be in that position. It doesn't make me feel like I wish I was them because I just have always felt like there's a lane for me. My lane is my lane. And I don't know everybody's story. And social media is not, it's not everything that you see is not what it is. There's,
Yeah,
it's not a glass
sure.
mirror. You can't see all that's behind it. Some people who are rich are lonely. Some people who are lonely are rich. Some people who are lonely and rich are still are depressed and still mentally ready to commit suicide. You just don't know everybody's story. So I kind of stay in my lane as far as my life. Social media does encourage me. I have changed how I approach social media. There was a time when I always posted my life and what I was doing. And I pulled back from that because I'm like, everybody really doesn't necessarily care.
Right.
And, and then you also need to be conscious about that. So I kind of now use social media more as a platform of encouraging people and sharing educational or positive or informative material, data, or information. Not so much as I'm going to do this tonight, or I'm with my bae, or we're going to do this, and just giving them all the details of my life.
Gotcha. Okay. I have a question for Erica, our mental health professional who's on the phone. Erica, can you hear me?
Yes.
What would you say to Ursula and Monty, who, admittedly say that they spend 3 to 5 hours out of their day um, on social media platforms?
I would actually say that is um, absolutely a little less than the norm. Studies have shown that most people spend in excess of at least.
Okay, let me interrupt you for just a second because you're cutting in and out. Is there a way we can hear what she's saying a little bit better, DJ?
Uh, the signal is kind
The signal is low because I definitely want to hear and be able to understand and grasp everything that she's saying from a mental health perspective.
Let me.
Oh.
Is this better?
Okay, I can hear you better now.
Hear me better? Okay.
Uh-huh.
What my response to them would be is actually they're not spending as much time as the average person spends on social media. Studies have shown that most people spend at least 6 to 8 hours daily on social media. What I would say to that is that on social media, we're able to live what I call a pseudo life. I'm getting a lot of echo, but I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, we can hear you.
For me, as a mental health professional, that's a lot better. For me, as a mental health professional, what I have found is that social media has negative impact as well as positive impact on one's mental health. But I would absolutely say that 1 to 2 hours is a good time frame, a good amount of time to be on social media, even a little bit more than that. I know personally speaking for myself, not necessarily just because of what I do, Tisa, but I have limited my time on social media. Of course, when you're working, everything is popping up. This is getting your attention, that is getting your attention. You feel led to go and check this side out or go over here and see what's going on over here. But just for my own quote unquote sanity, I've had to limit myself simply because at a point it can become unhealthy, because what that does is it drives you, it consumes you, it almost controls you to a point. And so I actually applaud them that they're only spending a couple of hours on social media, because for a lot of people it is somewhat of an addiction, and it can become an addiction.
And I think, and I actually, in my research, that was one of the findings, that social media is certainly addictive. They have, certain ways of getting you to click on this link or click on this link, or so they're really sort of, in a way, like when you become consumed with social media usage, you're really like a puppet on a string, and it's like they're just controlling your every move. So studies have shown that social media is definitely addictive. Before I get to the HR piece, I want to go back to the time spent on social media platforms, and I want to talk about work hours now spent on social media platforms. And I think that Monty and both Monty and Ursula's numbers were the same. Their responses were the same. And to be quite honest, it's pretty much in line with most of the people, with what most of the people who were surveyed said, that they spend 1 to 2 hours of company time on social media platforms daily. Robert, from an HR perspective, I know that HR, through my studies, I've gauged that HR is aware of this. I even had one HR specialist, when we asked for a best guesstimate of how much time their employees spent on social media platforms, how much work time, they actually guesstimated 3 to 5 hours of work time per day. So it's very obvious that HR is aware of the fact that employees are spending this company time on social media platforms. What is your position on that? Is that acceptable, or should it be?
Absolutely not. When employees are on social media and using social media not for work, that does reduce productivity. And from a leadership perspective, I think one of the things that not just the HR managers, but those who are in leadership, struggle with building capacity in employees. Because if we are really helping our employees become productive, you know, they find that, you know, they have a less, let me rephrase that. They don't use social media as much as if they're engaged in the work, they're not using social media as much. So social media, you know, when you think about it, was designed to be addictive.
And I agree with that. I think that what was surprising to me when I surveyed not only HR professionals but also the employees, regardless of the amount of time that they spent on social media platforms, and this is company time, regardless of the amount of company time they spent on social media platforms, HR is under the impression, as well as the employees, that it had little to no impact on their performance.
Yeah, unless you're working in a capacity of like a social media optimization website designer, or you're doing video blogs, or you're operating a podcast for your corporation, unless you're working in that capacity, I don't see how, you know, utilizing going on Facebook, Instagram, and these other applications are actually helping you to become productive, unless you're in a classroom with students and the students are using their cell phones to answer questions or to participate in a conversation. Those are healthy ways to use social media. And, you know, because social media is addictive and it's difficult to get, I think, was it Monty who mentioned that she's a classroom teacher and, you know, she has her students put the cell phones away. You know, we're combating something that's addictive. It's almost like they're on a drug.
Right.
And articles say that it's equivalent to like being addicted to crack cocaine or a methamphetamine or something like
Yeah.
that. It's that powerful. So finding ways to utilize social media in a healthy way in the workplace, you know, in an engaging way, answering a poll or something like that, those things could be beneficial. But if a person is just mindlessly scrolling, you
Right.
know, looking for content or looking for affirmation or confirmation, that takes away from the productivity of, you know, the office or the corporation.
Well, and certainly, you know, to piggyback on that, certainly I think when you look at the amount of time, unproductive time over the course of a year, I think it even helps to put things in a better perspective. 1 to 2 hours a day, and the 6.5 weeks over the course of a year, 6.5 work weeks over the course of a year is, of course, based on a 40-hour work week. But that is, you know, that's certainly substantial. When you think of an hour a day, you know, no big deal. But when you look at the really big picture, it really does take, I guess, productive time away from the workforce. Another issue is this, and this goes back to what Monty was saying about how addicted her students are to social media, to the point where they don't want to give way to their phones because they don't feel like they can operate or even function without them. When you bring that into the workplace, and you know, you have an addiction to social media, and then when you look at the employees who, you know, are tasked with doing, you know, various physical jobs throughout the workplace, and they've just gotten off a social media site and they're feeling down, they're feeling less than, they're feeling the effects of, you know, mental health issues as a result of having just spent time on social media. That definitely presents a different set of problems for the workplace. From an HR perspective, what do you think HR's role is in, you know, aiding those employees who are identified with having mental health issues, Robert? Dr. Payne?
Well, you know, Tisa, HR has a responsibility to its employees to make sure that, you know, they're healthy, they can work, if there are challenges or special needs that, the company or corporation will satisfy those by recommending an EAP program. And beyond that, I really don't know, the responsibility. And we're talking about social media, we're talking about a person's private property.
Mm,
And
correct.
Monty said, she wants, tells the students to turn the phones off, but, we can't really take their phones. It's their personal property. Something happens, school is liable. If we're on the job, you take their phones and, something happens, we're liable. The other piece though, some corporations utilize lockers where they have to put their phones away when they come to work so that, they're not engaged on the telephone. And there are some corporations that do that.
Why do you think HR doesn't take more of a stance in monitoring the use of social media?
Well, they do if they break company policy, right? So many corporations have policy regarding social media use. They have, policies about when you can use social media, how often you can use it, what you can actually post on your own personal social media site. If there's something that's going to be damaging to the company, that would be a problem. And again, let me just say that, I'm in leadership and I've worked with HR in a recruiting capacity. So, from a policy standpoint, I'm not the expert, but
Gotcha.
I think those are some of the reasons why, it's important to address needs in social media because it is an addiction. I think Ursula said, she tried to get away from it, put it down, and it was very difficult. It is challenging. And I would recommend, like a social media fast, try to do it for 1 to 3 days to see, how that would impact you.
It's amazing that you would say that because that's what I don't feel, even though I post a lot on social media, I usually post a lot to promote my business or the podcast or things of that nature. But I don't actually spend a lot of time scrolling up and down. I have a lot of friends who will say, did you see this post or did you see my page? And I'm like, no. So I have to actually intentionally go back and look at things because I have deliberately, probably within the last year, maybe even 2, limited the time that I'm on social media. And right now I'm observing Lent. So I have taken a fast from social media, except to, of course, promote the podcast or my business. And it actually, to be honest, it's not that difficult for me, but I know that my needs aren't somebody else's needs.
Right.
Our needs are different. I had one HR representative who answered the survey when I asked the question of how HR assists and support employees who are identified with having mental health issues. She said most mental health illness is covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. As such, it is HR's responsibility to work to ensure the interactive discussion process is initiated with the individual to determine whether or not a reasonable accommodation is necessary and can be reasonably accommodated. And the American with Disabilities Act protects the rights of people with disabilities. It guarantees equal opportunity in public accommodations, jobs, transportation, government services, and telecommunication. I think one of the bigger issues that I've researched for my thesis is the lack of confidence that employees have in being able to feel and being free enough and at liberty enough to go to leadership, whether it be HR or direct supervisors or what have you, and actually talk to them about their social media addictions or mental health issues. So I'm going to ask you, Monty, would you feel comfortable discussing any type of mental illness with your employer?
Well, first and foremost, I got to say that I'm blessed that I have a great administrator and a great curriculum coordinator who is my direct line supervisor. To her, I've known my curriculum coordinator longer, and she and I were classroom teachers together before she became an administrator. So she and I have a friendship that goes beyond the scope of our work environment. So I feel confident that I could talk to her in confidence about things. If I was struggling with any mental health issue or whatnot. My principal, I'm new since I'm back to my school after a hiatus for a couple of years. So I'm still learning him. He's a godly man, and he's very supportive for everybody. So I feel like it would be encouraged. But at the end of the day, no employee, my humble opinion, no employee is going to want to be vulnerable to someone who is in charge of whether or not they can keep them or let them go. And so, and I'm going to say this very emphatically, like our education system has been turned upside down with this whole COVID thing. And there are a lot of my colleagues that are struggling mentally, just from the stress of how we're trying to teach during this whole COVID pandemic era, and then going home to sometimes non-supportive spouses, or being single and having no one really to vent to but other than each other. So there's a lot of mental health distress in education right now, just because of the nature of the beast of COVID. And so, and my administrator acknowledges that. He's like, look, I know we're all struggling, but we're all in this together. And for some people, scrolling, during their planning period or before school, after school, during class time, I've seen that happen. That's their great escape from the stress of what we're dealing with right now. So, I mean, it's a slippery slope. I think that, and for my particular situation, I do feel like I could in confidence go to my administrators and talk about them if I was saying I was feeling some type of duress.
Gotcha.
But I don't know that that's applicable to, I'm
sure.
Hey, Tisa, can I chime in? May I interject?
Certainly.
The culture and climate of a building or an institution is really critical. So if, leadership doesn't, create an environment where people are comfortable with sharing and talking about challenges, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And I agree. And that was one of the survey questions. One of the survey questions I asked, and there was a huge disparity between what the employers actually thought they offered and what the employees felt that they were getting.
Wow.
When we surveyed HR professionals and asked them if transparent communication was encouraged on every level throughout the organization, and they responded emphatically, yes. Every level, we certainly encourage transparent and open communication. However, when the employees were surveyed, their responses were quite different. So I think that there's obviously a disconnect in what leadership thinks that they're providing for the employees and what they're actually getting.
Tisa, one of the things regarding that, though, is, leadership at the executive level may be trained and positioned to do that, to offer the transparent conversation. But, what about your middle managers and those who are on the front line who are managing employees? Do they have the proper training, to facilitate a conversation, a private conversation, or, providing an opportunity to allow people to do that, right? That takes patience. That takes, a willingness to listen, actively listen in the conversation. So I don't know that, those individuals who are in the corporation are really trained.
But should that not be a prerequisite? Shouldn't that be a requirement of leadership? So many leaders don't lead with empathy, and that is where, and I can speak from a leadership perspective. I've been in leadership positions for over 25 years, and my leadership style hasn't always been what it is today, but certainly the bang for your buck with regards to, a healthy work staff and reduced turnover and more productivity is going to come when you have a leader who actually leads with empathy. So critical thinking skills, critical listening skills should really be a part of a requirement to be in leadership positions, in my opinion.
Absolutely. One of the things, and Grady, baby, I apologize. I just want to say this one thing, even trying to get in. But leadership is walking with your colleagues, right? Being a boss, is telling people what to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Grady, what did you have to say?
I was going to mention, I'm going to go back a little bit about social media use in the workplace. I think 2008, I was working at a private mental health facility. They had I guess a internet signal blocker where you couldn't even use the internet on your personal device.
Yeah.
A lot of the hospitals are using it. I think some schools are using it too. And that's another way of controlling it. And also from staff using, as a staff using social media at on and off work, I mostly use or listen to like comedic stuff so it can give me a happy spirit,
Right. And you're right. There are certainly measures that are in place at a lot of companies to prevent you from visiting outside sites or surfing the net. But that still does not stop them from using their telephones. If they can't, visit social media sites via, the company equipment, then certainly there's nothing that stops them from using their cell phones to access social media sites.
Exactly right.
But Ursula, let me ask you, would you be comfortable going to your leadership and discussing any issues that you were facing concerning mental health?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because leadership varies, management and supervisors vary, and for some they care and for others they don't. And I just feel like most of the time, or at least from what I know, because I'm a federal employee, and I just feel like you have to really, there's a thin line between remaining professional and incorporating your personal. And even though your personal affects your professional, there are areas that you can use to get your personal taken care of. If you have a mental health issue, that's what EAP is for, the Employee Assistance Program. You can call
but EAPs can't identify mental health issues in employees because they're not readily present. So who is it that's equipped in the workforce to actually identify mental health issues and, assist with them before, something drastic or traumatic happens in the workforce? Who is that person? Who does that person need to be?
That would definitely be a supervisor or someone in leadership. Definitely that I can agree with. As far as going to them directly for me to tell them of a personal issue, not so much.
You lack the confidence in them. And it's from a confidentiality standpoint or from a fear of being judged or ridiculed or even ostracized?
Judgment, maybe all of it. Maybe all of it. Being judged, being, later on at a later time, judging or assuming me in particular areas. It can work for you depending on who you report to, and then it can work against you depending on who you work for and work with.
Absolutely.
It's a slippery slope, and if you do it, it's the chance you take. Hopefully you have someone that is empathetic and does know how to handle it. If they're a people person and if they really care, but sometimes they really don't care. And sometimes it'll work against you rather than for you.
And that's where leadership, I think, often fails employees. Because yes, go ahead. We have Erica on the phone. Go ahead, Erica.
I wanted to interject. That's why I believe that as you climb the ladder, with regard to your professionalism, the higher that you go, the more people that you're going to deal with, the more people that are potentially going to be under your guidance and under your supervision.
Mm-hmm.
You get higher and higher and higher. There are certain levels of training that I believe that you should have with regard to mental health. There are certain levels of training that you can get that would help you to identify issues.
Absolutely.
I absolutely believe that that's necessary. I mean, you can't be a supervisor over 100 people and not have certain qualities and not be able to kind of pinpoint certain things. Even if you can't actually give a person a quote unquote diagnosis per se, you can identify some things within them and maybe call them to the side and say, I really believe that you you may need to speak with somebody. And like you said, an employee assistance program is great, but I also believe that corporations should have a mental health professional there that people can go to and talk to, because it may be something that happens at work on any given day that almost sends you over the edge. And you
Absolutely. I could not possibly agree with you more. And as a matter of fact, that's something that I actually wrote in my paper.
You need to be able to go and sit down and talk with someone. It may not be that you have a diagnosis at all. You may just have had a meltdown that day, or you may have not been able to cope with something that happened that day.
Right.
So I absolutely believe that the higher you go, if you're in any level of supervision, you should absolutely have some sort of mental health training.
I could not agree with you more. I could not possibly agree with you more. I don't think that is the consensus of everyone in HR. I think that it's just become very easy and common to just refer people who have been identified, or the ones who do come forward, to the EAP. But I am certainly an advocate for people in leadership positions being trained to at least be able to facilitate, first identify or recognize mental health issues or mental illness issues, recognize them, and be able to at least facilitate some type of informal conversation with those employees to make sure that they get the help that they need. The problem is that you have leaders who just are not equipped with being able to recognize when somebody's crying out for help. And that to me is just another area in which leadership has failed the workforce. So I could not agree with you more. It's got to be more than just referring employees to EAPs. It's got to go deeper than that, in my opinion. We as leaders have more of an obligation to aid in, truly helping these employees, even other leaders who may be suffering, because it's not just employees, you have leaders as well who are suffering from mental health illnesses. So I have one survey here that I want to read some of her answers. And she's also an educator here in the greater Atlanta area. She says that she spends about 3 to 5 hours on social media a day. And those 3 to 5 hours are company time that she spends on social media platforms. And when it comes to impacting her performance, she says that she agrees that it does greatly impact her performance at work. She does compare herself to the lives of others that she views on social media platforms. And when asked if she was comfortable talking to leadership about mental health issues that she may have, she said no. She does not want to be viewed as being weak or incompetent. And they gossip too much. When asked what it would take what changes it would take for her to feel comfortable going to leadership to share these issues or ask for help. She says that they would need to show that they possess integrity and really care about the employees. This is a really serious issue.
Yeah.
The obligation goes far beyond just, in staffing and a productive workforce and getting out of them what you can. We as leaders have an obligation, I truly do feel, to really assist and aid those who are suffering from. There are people who go into work every day, and it was a task. It's a task and it's a chore just for them to get up and move out of the bed each morning, and then they go into a job where they don't feel valued, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel like they can talk to management about their issues or concerns. How productive do we really think those employees are going to be? Like, it has to go further than just the status quo, right?
Right.
So I guess.
Okay, so I believe that the performance is absolutely going to be subpar.
Yes.
I'll use myself as an example. I've been, at a position where I was absolutely miserable. I felt as if I was being bullied. I felt as if I was in a hostile work environment. I felt that, a picture was being painted about me because I spoke up for myself. And so at a point, I just became a machine. I just wanted to go and produce and do what I had to do and come home, but that's really no way to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, for 2 years, it's very difficult.
Absolutely.
It is very challenging, and it takes everything you have to go to that job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're not by yourself. So many people experience this. I had a conversation with my youngest daughter a few years ago, and I think this is what really set my path in a different direction when it came to the usage of social media. She was upset and almost depressed that she didn't have a lot of followers on Instagram. And that's what led to the conversation. And she said, if you don't have a lot of followers on Instagram, mommy, you're a nobody.
Oh, wow.
You're a nobody, because when as the Generation Zs, when we meet each other, the first thing we ask each other is, what's your Instagram channel or name or whatever? What's your Instagram handle? And if you don't have an Instagram page, oh my gosh, you're really a nobody. But then if you don't have a lot of likes and you don't have a lot of followers, you're nothing. You're a nobody. And she was just really distraught and upset, and I would say, why do you allow the opinions of others to dictate to you who you are? You're intelligent. And I started affirming her and just trying to build her up. But what I came to realize shortly thereafter was that social media opinion trumped parent opinion. And that really affected me.
Yeah.
That really, really affected me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Tisa, this kind of goes back to why they even created Facebook in the first place, right? So, it was created by comparing women to one another. So it is a comparison application. So rightfully so, in your thesis, when you asked, do you feel like, how do you feel, when you use social media? Are you comparing yourself? We do innately, and we don't even realize it because it's an integrated algorithm in the program.
Yes.
Absolutely. Comparing yourself with other people, because that's how the program was designed.
So I think even for people, Dr. Payne, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then Erica, you correct me if I'm wrong, and also the employees. I think that it's really easy to say when you're scrolling and viewing other people's profiles and their lifestyles and all this and that and the other. I don't even know how realistic it is to say that you don't subliminally or subconsciously compare yourselves to them. I don't know that that's not natural. I could be wrong, but
Lisa,
I don't think so.
can I interject? I know I said
Please.
I don't compare myself, and I don't really feel like I do, but I do find myself judging myself. Like if I see
Yeah.
someone really falling, if they're rich and they're just, living the life, the superstars, I'm like, dang, I know that would, oh, I would love to have that. But now I will admit, if I see a woman that, just curvaceous and looking real fine, I'd be like, darn, I need to lose some weight.
Okay. So that's a
I need to get
comparison.
it together.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
might need to,
Yeah.
fix that, in that regard. As far as wishing I was someone or saying that I don't tend to do, but yeah, it can have you. I have definitely looked at posts and reassessed my life.
Of
Reassessed
course.
things. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you want
Yeah.
to reassess things at times. So yeah, social media does tend to automatically do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's uncommon. I mean, some people view my posts and just assume I have everything together and I have this fabulous life. And don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for the life that I've been blessed to have, and I try to make the most of every day that I'm on this side of the dirt. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm no different than anyone else, and from the perspective that I don't have everything together. There are insecurities
Right.
that I have, just like everybody else. There are comparisons that I've made, just like most people. So I just don't know. When I say that, I was just saying, and just because you're making comparisons doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying, "Oh, I wish I was them." But sometimes you could say, "I wish I looked like that," or
Right.
maybe I wish I had that, or maybe I wish so those are all, comparisons. And I think that the more engage in social media usage, the more, that increases. So I guess my question to Monty and Ursula would be, now that you've heard a mental health professional say that in order to really maintain a healthy balance, um, you should really limit your social media usage to 1 to 2 hours a day. How is that going to, um, you know, make you stop and think about the time that you actually spend on social media per day? Is it going to, spark something in you that makes you say, I'm going to stay off social media a little bit more? Or does it really not have any effect on what you're going to do going forward at all?
For
Monty?
me,
Most definitely. I think for me personally, 2020 was quite the year. And while I wasn't devastated by it, it was a very enlightening year for me. And so I've been on a path of joy. And if something doesn't bring me joy, I limit it, I minimize it.
Yeah.
And I found that social media doesn't necessarily soothe my soul or feed my spirit. And so I've been listening to a lot more podcasts. I've been watching documentaries and productive things, reading more books, because I found is that there's nothing really new under the sun on social media. It's just a different day.
It's just a
And so
different
it's kind
day.
of the same thing. And I'm thinking, what in the world? I ain't missed nothing. I'm checking my phone like I'm missing out on something. And, and it's just not very productive for me, and it doesn't bring me joy. So I'm just being true to me and putting,
Yes.
I'm trying to fill my cup as much as possible. And I found that
Mm-hmm.
social media doesn't necessarily do that. It's a great way to communicate and contact with people, but I think that if they're that important, then that's what a telephone's for. Call me old school.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so I mean, I don't really see that I'm miss, and I've been cutting the cord slowly but surely, and I just don't necessarily see the need of it. If I feel worse typically after scrolling. Even, I mean, I'll pick up my phone now that I'm practicing joy more intentionally. You know, I'll pick up and I'll scroll and I'm like, this is and I'll just put it on like, what am I doing? What's the point? There's nothing changed. So
For me, it actually just became boring, a bit monotonous. And,
Right.
I get bored with the same routine all the time. I would rather be out being active and doing something and actually enjoying my life instead of watching
right,
what others want you to feel that they're
Exactly.
enjoying about theirs.
right.
Um, and so I don't scroll. I very seldom ever log on to, and like I say, I've done this for years, but I very seldom ever, unless I'm just specifically looking for someone's page, because they've asked me to. I very seldom see what other people post, and so I've had many people ask me, "Well, did you see this post, or did you?" I can't say that I did, but I certainly appreciate all those who support my post or comment on my post. If I'm helping you, then yeah, definitely keep sharing the love, but don't be offended if I don't respond to your post. It's not anything personal. I just don't spend uh, a lot of time out of my day
Yeah.
scrolling and wondering what other people are doing. But I'm happy for them. However they want to live their lives, I'm happy. Whatever they want to share, um, I'm happy to see it if I do. But it's just not productive time for me.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know what else to say about that. But let me ask you guys this one question before we go, because we're going to have to get off this podcast, and it's been really a wonderful power packed hour. But Erica, I will ask you first from a mental health perspective. What do you think HR's obligation should be um, in assisting employees identified with having mental health issues?
Mm. Um, wow, that's a loaded question. There's so many ways I could answer that, but I would say that we just need to try and do our very best from the HR perspective, from the mental health realm, from every realm, in particular HR, to make sure that the people that we employ are as healthy as they can be, especially if they've identified or if someone has identified that there is a mental health issue, because um, we all know that if you allow something to go on without treating it,
Yes.
without giving any attention to it, that it only gets worse. It only progresses, and not necessarily progressing in a positive way. And
Right.
so we always want to make sure that we have empathy, that we have compassion, that we take care in the people who we have trusted to
Yeah.
employ. Because I mean, we hired them for a reason. There's something. There's something that caused us to put our confidence in them, that they represent our agency or corporation. And so we need for them to know and to understand that, yes, we absolutely care for you. Because a lot of times people, as it's been said so many times, so many different ways on this podcast tonight, people will not come forward because they don't trust. There's no
Right.
confidence there. And so it's our responsibility, I believe, from an HR perspective, to give people that confidence and to let people know that we absolutely care for you. We
A-
absolutely want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, we succeed as a business.
Absolutely. And one final question to you. Do you agree that too much social media usage um, can be the cause or at least perpetuate mental health illness?
I do. I do because let's face it, social media um, can be positive, as I said in the beginning, but it can also be negative. I mean, there's quite a bit of evil and hate and bullying and all that type of stuff goes on social media. Now
Yes.
it's up to us whether or not we want to click on something or tap into that or respond. But when we get certain responses or we see certain things or we're looking at certain things, we develop those pictures and those thoughts. To say that they don't impact us is not true.
Absolutely.
Talked a little bit about comparing ourselves. And let's face it, we all have insecurities. Every one of us has insecurities, at least 5.
Yes.
I would say. And so seeing certain things can play on our insecurities, hearing certain things, seeing things in black and white, seeing things typed about us, seeing other people's lives can impact us.
Yes.
And I've been told time and time again that comparison is the thief of joy. And I don't feeling my joy because I'm comparing myself, but let's be honest, that's what we have a tendency to do. And so absolutely social media can have an adverse impact on one's mental health. But it's
Very,
also
very good.
to be able to try to manage that in a healthy way. Because to say that you shouldn't do any social media, I would never say that. What I would say is that there is a way to manage it in a healthy way.
Gotcha.
We have to discipline ourselves.
Very good. Very good. Dr. Payne, do you have any parting words for us tonight?
Of course. I'd just like to piggyback on what she said. I think it's important to have a mental health professional on staff. I think corporations are going to have to really consider that, considering COVID-19, considering social unrest, the death of George Floyd, and we witnessed all of these things. Like all of this impacts us, right?
Yes.
Internally, in our mental space. And so, yeah, and many people won't even come forward and talk about it.
No, because they're ashamed.
They're ashamed, and lots of thought processes going on about what's really going on with me, right? And I don't really know how to fix it.
Right.
And, prior to the 1980s, there were healthcare facilities all over the United States, and then after Reagan, they disappeared.
Wow. Very, very good. Very good. So, Ursula, do you have any parting words before and Grady, you as well? And then I'm going to close us out with my parting words.
I do believe social media affects your mental health. I'm very careful about what I do view on social media. People tend to put everything on here, and that's what's so addictive. You've got people who are really funny. You've got people who are telling you their entire lives, and then you've got the really sick and disturbing people who are willing to post suicides or murders and different things going on. It's really, there's nothing we're not privy to on social media, which is probably why it's so excessive. So it's definitely something that's affecting all of us in different ways. And we definitely need to be mindful of it, to be careful about it, cautious. And I definitely agree it affects your mental health. Whether that be positive or negative, and depending on what you flock to and what pulls you and what you are looking for is the direction that you'll travel on social media. That's what I'll have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And DJ Grady baby, what parting words have you for us? Okay, we can't hear you, DJ.
Can you hear me now?
We can now.
All right. I would like to say, I would like to encourage corporations to seek crisis prevention training for all their leaders, supervisors, part of their practice, because the supervisors are the front line of the defense. They'll see everything before it happens. So by them having that crisis prevention training, it cuts back on outbursts and whatever,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's very good. I agree with that 100%. And let me just say this to close us out, guys. First of all, I appreciate all our panel guests tonight. You guys were wonderful. Awesome job. Thank you for being open and honest and transparent. I truly feel like podcasts like these are designed to help other people. But what I do want the viewers to know is this: whatever you're going through from a mental health standpoint or a mental health illness standpoint, know that you're not alone. I don't believe that the answer is found on social media platforms for you, and that's just my personal opinion. I would err to the side of caution and suggest that if you do feel that you have an unhealthy addiction to social media platforms, that you do challenge yourself. And I think it was I don't know if it was Dr. Payne who suggested that, or somebody said, give yourself a couple of days off of social media just to see if you can do it. That'll tell you whether or not you're addicted, because if you can't do it, guess what? There's an issue. There's a problem. There's a deeper problem. But I just want to encourage those of you out there to really challenge yourself when you start to compare yourself to other people. Social media, though tangible, is not real. People are only going to share on their profiles and on their pages what they want you to know about them. They're not typically going to share the nights that they're crying themselves to sleep because they're lonely or because something traumatic has happened. They're not typically going to share blow-ups and arguments that they have as a married couple. They're going to make you think that their life is flawless because that's what they want you to think. And they have every right to post whatever they want to post. I just want us to be mindful of the fact that it's only one version of their story. It's only one side of the story. Everybody has insecurities. Don't feel like you're alone in that. And I would encourage you to find a reason, a different reason. And this is the life coach side of me. Find a different reason every day to wake up and love yourself. Discover something new about yourself every day that makes you love yourself. Look in the mirror every morning when you wake up and tell yourself another reason why you love you. There's something within everybody that's worthy of love. So thank you guys. Thank you guys. I also want to say that from a leadership standpoint, that we have work to do.
Yes.
We owe our employees more than what we're giving them. And I have to take ownership in that, just like the HR managers do, just like executive leadership does. When you are a leader, you are expected. You were promoted because you were thought of as being the cream of the crop. There is no effectivity in leading if you're not first empathetic. If you can't empathize with your employees and your associates to sort of gauge where they're coming from and offer them some type of assistance or support, you're doing them a disservice. And you're also doing yourself a disservice, because when you help others, you help yourself. So we have work to do from an HR perspective and from a leadership perspective. We owe the workforce more than what we're giving them. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for the podcast. Thank you to the panel guests, and thank you so much to the viewers. If you have comments, we will get back to them. I'll try to answer all of them within a 2 to 4 day period whenever I'm on social media. But thank you for viewing. Thank you for chiming in. And I would certainly respectfully ask that everybody who will please share this podcast so that it reaches as many people as it possibly can. Thank you so much. Take us out, DJ Grady, baby.
Thank you, DJ Grady, baby. Bye, Tisa.
Thank you, Laura.
Hi. God bless.
Are you taking us out?
Hi, Pizza.
Bye, babies. Thank you.
You. You're welcome. Love you.
What is that, DJ?
Huh? My book.
Well, let's talk about your book before everybody leaves. Everybody, go out and buy DJ Grady Baby's book. What is the name of the book?
Volume 2, Because Losing is Not an Option.
Get it, and it's by Grady Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Go out and buy his book today, guys.
Really
Thank you.